The O2 Arena was filled with so much energy that fans had their phones out and their lights flashing. There were loud cheers and applause as Drake was called up for his opening performance. The soundtrack dropped, and Drake started with the first lyrics of God's Plan, singing it with his signature smoothness that sent waves of excitement through the crowd. This was yet another night for him, a night on which he could remind the world that the music industry had not seen enough of him, because this was yet another sold-out event, another moment of greatness. Then, something strange happened. A sharp, high-pitched sound blasted through the arena's speakers, like a radio frequency gone haywire. Drake was shocked because his earpiece could not stop the sound from penetrating his ear. The lights scattered around the arena moved and flashed unpredictably. The audience started to murmur. What was going on? The murmur was becoming really loud. He turned toward his crew at the side of the stage, expecting a quick fix. He hoped this was just a technical glitch, which could have been easily fixed without delay, but it wasn't. The speakers stopped giving the high-pitched sound, and everything seemed to be back to normal, but instead of his track, an unfamiliar voice came out, with so much power that it echoed through the arena. "Aubrey Drake Graham," the voice called out to Drake. This made Drake freeze as if he had just been submerged in really cold water. The crowd went quiet as the air suddenly became heavy with anticipation. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. "You owe me," the voice said again. The spotlight, programmed to follow the lead mic, suddenly moved around frantically and unpredictably before landing on a small figure near the sound booth, moving toward the center stage. It was a woman. She seemed small, but sure looked determined, with a microphone in her hand. The arena went quiet in anticipation of what was happening. A few of them were already on edge and needed to know what was going on. Drake felt like he could hear his heart pounding in his ears. What could this person want? Was she sent to sabotage him? Who could she be? Where did she come from? If this was a prank, he would love for it to end immediately before things went sideways. Aubrey Drake Graham, popularly known as Drake, had it all from fame to money, to living luxuriously. Whatever you could imagine someone so successful to have, Drake had it. A loving family, a successful music career, a wonderful wife, awards, and anything and everything he had. They didn't come easy. He had a rough background, but he sure put in much effort to become the man he had become, and everyone was proud of him. Drake was born sometime in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, to a family with a musical history, from his father to his uncle, cousins, and granduncle. Drake's loving father, Dennis Graham, was an African-American drummer who had worked with the likes of Jerry Lee Lewis, among many others. Jerry Lee Lewis got him his biggest job as a drummer, and that brought him to the limelight and made him a recognizable figure in the American music industry. On the other hand, Drake's mother, Sandy Graham, was a Canadian Jewish educator and floral designer. Drake's parents divorced when he was almost 8, a month before his birthday. He was devastated and remained with his mother because he could not entirely understand why his father did what he did to his mother. He became known in his vicinity for his athletic and well-built physique. He was approximately 6 feet tall and maintained a muscular frame through regular workouts and fitness routines. Through his teenage years, he developed broad shoulders, a defined chest, and toned arms, which he occasionally showcased on his social media handles. This made him a good playboy and a ladies' man in his neighborhood. On a cool autumn evening, a man walked into a diner. It happened to be the same diner where Drake worked part-time. In his black suit and smooth red tie, the man placed an order and specifically asked Drake to bring it to him. Drake brought the man's food to him, and the man asked him to sit so they could talk. Drake wanted to protest, but his employer had been made aware of who the man was, so his protest was pointless, the man told him. He introduced himself as Will Smith, a popular actor who had acted in over 10 of the top movies played in every cinema and movie house. Drake was surprised to meet Will. They spoke for a while about personal interests and the likes before Will asked Drake if he would like to be in a movie with him. He explained to Drake that he needed someone within Drake's age and with the same physique as Drake to be his partner in the movie. Drake was the perfect fit for the role. He had dreamed of being a star, but hadn't thought someone like the legendary Will Smith would be the one to take him into stardom. He hesitated before agreeing, and that was his debut into stardom. While enjoying his popularity as an actor, Drake realized he had an affinity for music and decided to try it on the side to see how favorable it would be for him. After dropping his first and second single, which didn't make waves as expected, he decided to try one last time before he gave up on music and faced acting. That was when his breakthrough came, and so his music career started. As time passed, he became more popular and eventually got added to Lil Wayne's Young Money Entertainment. That was how Drake became so successful. From being a Jewish boy in a Jewish environment, he became a rapper, singer, songwriter, actor, and producer. After Drake became a star in the music industry, he made it a point of duty to have a concert and charity event. This event always came with a surprise every year, and Drake never stopped having them. The first time he had his concert and charity event, his dad, after years of leaving him and his mom, came to support him and asked for forgiveness. The family reconciled, but his parents still lived their separate lives as they were now old. It was another year again when Drake had to start preparing for his annual concert and charity event. He had thought of ways to make this year's own special and memorable. There were thoughts, but none of them seemed to stick. He always hoped that he would always plan every outcome for himself. But life had its way, and he could feel it in his bones that this one wouldn't be any different. The D-Day came, and tickets were all sold out for the concert at the legendary O2 Arena. Drake's fans were excited to be there. They couldn't wait to see what Drake had in store for them. The arena was filled with fans waiting and wanting to see Drake perform and tell them what was new. They all had their phones out, cameras turned on, and flashlights waiting for the right moment to start recording. Drake wore a designer polo shirt, matching jeans and trousers, and one of his signature sneakers from his Nike collection. To complete his look, he added a leather jacket. He walked backstage, waiting to be called up on stage. The concert had started with a few other artists performing and giving it their all. It was now his turn. The track came on in the background. It sounded familiar. Heavy bass vibrated through the arena, jerking everyone out of their seats with excitement. It was finally time for his first appearance on stage. With his smooth voice and so much confidence, Drake walked up the stage singing his song God's Plan, which was his introductory song for his opening act. The entire arena could feel the sound in their bones. It was a beautiful feeling. With every scream from the crowd, Drake felt a new wave of energy to continue. He didn't want to stop. Nothing could cut out his flow. He was running smoother than he anticipated, and he felt invincible. No, he was invincible. There was no stopping him tonight. Suddenly, a strange voice came from the speakers, cutting through the music playing in the background. It was so loud that Drake's fans wondered who that was. It was completely off, and it didn't follow the soundtrack playing. The speakers around the arena gave back a high-pitched whine, like feedback, but sharper and more insistent. The sound was so sharp that it pierced through the earpiece Drake had on. "This wasn't supposed to happen," a voice said from the earpiece. Drake stood on the stage stunned and confused, unable to understand what was happening. He felt as if he had been doused with really cold water. "Who is this?" Drake tried to say back to the earpiece, but it was a one-way speaker for just him that didn't allow communication. It was a speaker meant just for him to get information from the sound crew on what song was coming up next. The stage lights seemed out of control. They were all over the place, creating panic for Drake's security details. Drake had already stopped halfway through his song Hotline Bling. He looked very confused and didn't know what was happening, but he needed to put his mojo back on so things wouldn't be completely ruined. Suddenly, the sound died down. Drake apologized to his fans in the arena. He was about to ask that they continue from where they had left off, but the sharp sound returned. This time, it was louder. The spotlight that was supposed to stay focused on Drake moved unpredictably before landing on a small figure near the sound booth. Apparently, spotlights like that are programmed to follow whoever has a lead mic. The small figure moved up on stage and began taking small but determined steps toward Drake, still holding a microphone. She was not part of any of the crews at the arena. Drake himself knew everyone who worked with each crew because this was not his first rodeo with them. Security guards started moving toward the small figure. Drake's personal security detail moved in to protect him, come what may. "Aubrey Drake Graham," the figure's voice echoed through the arena, which had fallen silent to understand what was happening. A few had already gone live on their social handles to report what was happening. "Aubrey Drake Graham, you need to answer for this," the figure said again. This time, there were no pitched sounds from the speakers, and the voice echoed clearer. It was a lady. The small figure was a lady. But who? Drake wondered. He asked his detail and security to give him space, and also signaled to the stage security not to touch the figure. He let her walk toward him. By this time the arena was on edge, and needed to know what was happening. "Who are you?" Drake managed to ask, his voice still smooth, trying to hide the nervousness in his question. "My name is Maya Aldwell, and I'm here to expose you," she said. Expose him? What did Drake do to warrant such public exposure? The crowd began to murmur. The murmur was mixed with anticipation and confusion. Expose me for what? Drake asked, maintaining his composure. He forced a laugh. Sorry, lady, this must be a mistake. This is a concert, not a court or something. No, Maya said, her voice firm and without fear. This is where you face the truth. Everyone in the arena wanted to know what Drake was paying for. They needed details, not all the unnecessary drama. Someone say something, one of the audience shouted. The suspense is killing, another replied. Talk or leave, someone else said. The crowd was getting impatient, and the murmurs were becoming audible voices. Some had already prepared to hurl things at the lady, but Drake asked that they all remain calm so they could all get to the root of the matter. Drake knew he had nothing to hide, but the determination in this woman's voice was scary. He knew she had something up her sleeve, but couldn't quite figure out what. Things would get heated real soon if he didn't do something about the situation. Mind if we go somewhere and talk? Drake asked. So you can shut me up forever, right? No way, I am not going anywhere with you. We settle this here and now, Maya replied. You do realize you are wasting my precious time, right? I do not have all day here, and my fans need me to continue, as this is what they paid for, Drake answered. They would all soon realize that it was all worth it in the end, Maya said with a loud hiss. The crowd went silent as Maya finally showed her face. They couldn't figure out what to do with the face. She had to have known Drake because they could all see the pain in her eyes. Drake could tell that she was hurt. He didn't know what he could have done that would have hurt her so much. He took pity on her and asked her what it was he did that might have hurt her so much. He asked this while walking toward her. Maya was shocked that Drake didn't remember her. She asked him to be sure, and Drake concurred that he didn't remember her. She took Drake down memory lane and reminded him of when they were kids, when he promised to look after her. They even made a pact to look after each other. Unfortunately, Drake became so popular that he forgot about his pact with her. She showed him the bracelet he got her to signify their lifelong friendship. She reminded him of the Sunday dinners he either had at her place or she had at his place, and how their families made jest of them about acting like a married couple. She kept reminding him of their childhood, and while she was talking, the crowd felt touched by her story. But Drake wasn't feeling it. He couldn't tell which was true and which was not. Some of the stories she gave were true, while others sounded like they were fabricated. Some of these stories I remember, others I do not. I do not remember having anyone by the name of Maya Aldwell, Drake said, as he got really close to her. Stop the act, Drake, Maya screamed as she knelt in tears. You know who I am. I have always been with you. I know you. I have always known you, and I will always know you, Maya said. Drake sank deep in thought as he tried to remember, but nothing came to his mind. You owe me, Drake. You owe me, and it's not money or fame. You owe me nothing but the truth. Tell everyone who gave you your first lyrics, the same lyrics you used for your song Replacement Girl. That song was supposed to be a duet, with you talking about the ladies and I about the guys. Who pushed you when no one else believed? The crowd gasped, unable to believe what they had just heard. How could this be? Drake had always boasted about the originality of his songs. If Replacement Girl was not his, then how many more songs had he stolen? This was the moment of truth. Drake had to answer. He owed everyone an explanation. For a while, the arena went silent. Drake seemed to have remembered who she was, but he needed to be sure. His memory went back in time. He remembered that truly, Replacement Girl was supposed to be a song by two people, but he was never able to reach that person. He looked for her everywhere, but couldn't find her. After becoming a star through the movie, Will Smith had him on. He could not immediately return to Canada to meet everyone, and it was only known to a few that he wouldn't be back for a while. When he had the time, he went back to look for her, but there was no trace of her because she had lost her parents to a ghastly fire incident and had to move. That was the last Drake heard about her. He didn't know her as Maya Aldwell. No, he knew her as Victoria Kelly, or Trey, as everyone in their childhood neighborhood fondly called her. Drake could feel tears in his eyes. He had missed her. She was the closest person he had to a family member after his mom. She was like his shadow back then, and he once in a while thought about her and prayed she was doing well. To everyone's surprise, Drake laughed while wiping tears from his eyes. The laughter was genuine, and they could tell he was crying. But why was he laughing? Nobody expected that reaction from him. You know what? You're right. I owe you and everyone the truth, and I have missed you so much, Trey, he said. Trey was the first person who ever believed I could do this. I wouldn't be here without her. Growing up, I didn't think I had what it took to do music, but Trey kept believing in me. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this together. Drake signaled the technical team, and they played the soundtrack for Replacement Girl. Drake hugged Trey and asked her to lead the song as they always did while growing up. Trey smiled and hugged Drake. They launched into a freestyle on the song, making it longer but more interesting than what Drake dropped alone. Their chemistry was undeniable. Truly, they were close growing up. The audience, excited, joined them in the chorus of the song, as it was a joy to see two age-long friends reunite. When the song ended, Drake held her by the hand and took a bow before whispering to her, "No more disappearing. You're back in my life now and I would love to keep it that way." She was so happy to hear Drake say that and hugged him tight. This was not the reaction she had expected. A few people told her it was pointless to try and call Drake over an issue like that, as many artists did things like that and got away. However, she was still willing to try and push her luck. The lights in the arena became brighter as Drake took a break, allowing other artists to perform before he would go back on stage. After everyone else had performed, Drake came back on stage to give his people the closing act for the concert before he headed out, and that would be the end of the concert. The crowd roared as he got back on the stage and performed. As a token of his gratitude, he brought Trey back on stage and asked her to perform any of her original songs, and he was going to be behind her to hype her all the way. Trey got up on stage. Drake had her outfit changed, and she looked beautiful. She looked like she owned the place. She appreciated Drake and delved into her own songs. As she sang, the crowd roared with admiration and love for her. Truly, she was born to be a star. She pulled Drake to the center stage with her, and they vibed and blended. It was truly a wonderful evening that beat Drake's imagination. He could tell that Trey would go places and be a great artist. He would support her and ensure she had everything she needed to make it in the music industry. After she was done, Drake announced that his next album would feature her, and they would see more of her on stage with him. It really was an epic night. The past came back in one night, and Drake handled it well. Everyone thought his reaction was priceless, and they loved it. Ring! Drake woke up to his alarm ringing. He was in a hotel not far from the O2 Arena. Could it have been a dream? He ran out of his room and went to the next room. He opened the door just to be sure. There, she was still sleeping like a baby. Drake smiled and quietly closed the door behind him. It wasn't a dream. The events of the previous day happened. He smiled and went back to his room to sleep. The concert was over, and now he had to rest for the charity event in the evening. Who would have thought he would see Trey again? What do you think about Drake's reaction to being called out on stage? That's a reaction many celebrities don't give, don't you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. You can also turn on the notification bell to be notified of new posts. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen. See you next time.